All right. Good evening, everyone. Hi, ladies. Hi,
Hi.
Tracy,
Hey.
Joanna. Hey,
Hi.
Crystal.
Hey.
Thank you, world, for joining us. Life lessons for a time such as now. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And even leave us a comment on Facebook. We're on Facebook now. So we'd love to hear what you have to say. Tonight's topic is variables of trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to horrific events like rape, accidents, abandonment, or even something like a natural disaster. After a person has been traumatized, shock and denial shows up in the lives of the people that have been traumatized. If the proper help is not treated right away, we all know this firsthand, the long-term effects take effect and our reactions surface like flashbacks, strained relationships, unpredictable emotions, even some physical symptoms that start to show. So there are three main attributes of trauma: acute, chronic, or complex. Acute trauma results from a single accident. Chronic trauma is repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse, which you've heard us talk about that. And then complex trauma is exposure to variables of trauma, which we'll be talking about. So again, what is trauma?
It's me.
It's Renee.
Ooh,
It's Joanna.
come on. Y'all know it's me. You guys heard my story before. You know it's me.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
So I would say, firstly, thank you, ladies. Thank you to Joanna, especially for you know, it's not easy to discuss this topic, but I feel like over the course of our lives, we have shared in the courses of some of that. It was a little hard for me to kind of read off and say those things to the audience, like as if it was a script when it's actually our lives, right? I mean, if we were to keep it real, we did make it a little light, but actually, uh, us as a group of women that has been sharing, we felt that especially Tuesday was National um, it's not National Trauma Day, but it's National Mental Health Day, which I think they need to say something like National Trauma Day so that we can all learn how to look through the lenses of what it is to know someone that's trauma or to experience your own trauma. And I love the fact that Joanna brought it out, something that's very important: prolonged trauma, which is acute if it's not dealt with over a course of time. We could find ourselves reacting in some of the places that we don't really recognize, even that we recognize rather that we've even been traumatized. I don't know. I'm a little emotional now. I want somebody else talk because I feel like my trauma is really kicking up.
So if y'all don't mind, um, some of the actions that come from trauma, the after effect, right? And that's what Renee, I guess, is somewhat feeling now. Could be shock, could be denial, disbelief, confusion. Um, the thing with trauma, once it happens, now it's a thing of our past. Whether it's a minute ago, it's still a past thing. The whole thing with trauma, and I think why we decided to have this or talk about it to help heal ourselves and others, is because we don't want trauma to constantly affect our present
Nice.
or go against our future, where we carry it with us. So I think today's show is really an important show, and I'm happy to be on it. I'm grateful, that we can talk about these things.
Thank you. Chris, you said trauma is me. Why did you scream out that trauma is you right now?
Well, today was, a hectic day, working and trying to fit everything into your schedule. And sometimes that's a bit traumatizing when you're trying to be on point and just all kinds of things, happen. Life happens. For me, I've been traumatized. I guess we all been traumatized, for a while in our lives, but it seemed like things just keep happening. Someone hit my car and totaled my car, which was traumatizing. Then right after that, I had an electrical fire and my roof. And then today I'm trying to get spectacles so I can see. And they wanted $600. And I'm like, I'm all tapped out. So financially, I'm just trying not to be traumatized because I know God got me. But, sometimes it's just overwhelming, so that's why I'm traumatized.
I have to agree with you on that.
Just life.
That's it.
Yeah.
How about you,
Yeah,
Tim?
I definitely understand what you're saying, Crystal. And I just want our audience to know that outside of Renee and her experience as a counselor, we're not counselors. Joanna,
No.
Crystal, nor I are counselors. We're only sharing our own personal views on trauma, and we're only just sharing, our experiences, and maybe it can help you. For me, we are joking about it, but it's real. And
Yeah.
there's all different types of trauma. And I know that for me, there was some very lasting effects of trauma in my life. And just up until recently, I've, began to let it go. Or in the process of freeing myself from some of it, because, it could be post-traumatic stress disorder, and that came from the physical abuse I've been through, mental, emotional abuse, that I've dealt with, sexual abuse, and being diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer is traumatic within itself.
Right.
So I've been through a few of them, and I thank God that I'm still here to even talk to you guys about it. I am in therapy. And I'm really starting to look deep into myself and realize, because sometimes we don't even realize that the effects of our traumatic experiences, affects our everyday life.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? It affects our everyday life. And I'm just really realizing that. So right now, I'm excited about this topic, and we could just really get, we get down and funky with it.
All
Well, I
right.
just want to clarify real quickly. It's as a clinician, that doesn't exempt me from, because counselors do one thing, clinicians actually do something differently. And I think that the course of my work has allowed me to become something that I heard Joanna say, becoming healed from my own trauma because of all the research and what I found. It actually chucks up more than I expected a lot of over the course of these, 30 years of being in the mental health field. So um, it doesn't exempt, a provider of mental health or a counselor or clinician or a psychotherapist, psychologist, even psychiatrists from not being I guess examined, if they will, allow the process. Before they treat somebody else, they need to be seeing somebody themselves, just so we clear about that.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me just say this real quick. And I just didn't mean to jump in. But like my father, he is a clinician in his own right, social worker, counselor, all those things as well. And when he was going through the training hours, the clinical hours, if you will, they still had to do certain type of exercises. And he said that he had to tap into things that happened, many, many years ago.
Mhm.
Didn't realize that it affected his, his today, if you will. So
Right.
yeah, like in order for you to also help someone else, like you do have to deal with your own issues or your own trauma as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's a good
that's
point. Yeah.
and
I'm thinking about seeking some counseling myself because I know I have some deep rooted things that that's buried so deeply, that needs to come out for my total healing and my total restoration.
Come on, say it.
Because, trauma is real. And like we were talking about, it's all different kinds of trauma. I had emotional trauma, your childhood, relationships, supposed love, even with your children, even with the decisions and the choices that we have made in our lives has been, well, for me, it has been, traumatic. And I am going to seek counseling, and us as Black people don't really look into that or really consider having a therapist. And I think that we should, because it helps. I believe it will help.
Well, I applaud you for that. Joanna's been trying to double dutch.
No, no.
Sorry, Joanna.
I guess it's good to see that, this show is providing so much for people and for ourselves. Because even though we all going through our own different traumatic events that we've had in our lives, the main key to this, which I'm hoping people really take, is ways to heal, which is some of what you guys said, like acknowledging the event. You have to face it. Sometimes if it has to pertain to someone else, the hard conversation has to be had regardless. Accept support. Be willing to accept support from others. It could be a phone call. It could be a text. It could be a therapist. It could be just accept help. You might have came out your mama womb alone, but ever since you never been alone. Whether it was by friend, loved one, foe, doesn't matter. And then what a lot of people need to do too is practice self-care. That's very important. If you let yourself go, you know what comes next, right? State of depression. If you're not caring about yourself, how do you expect others to even care about you?
Right.
And you're not doing it to look for them to care, but, and then focus on your physical health, which is important. Just simple walk.
Right.
That's the simple walk. And then real quick, and I meant to get this before we started the show, I have a book that I want to recommend that most people, like when I started reading this book, I was just like, oh my God. It's stuff in the Black community, because Crystal spoke about the Black community. We shy away from help, okay? Because I put my H on my chest, I'm good. No, you're not good. So anyway, something to kind of help is a book called Black Pain. I recommend this book by Terry Williams. I recommend this book. I had this book for years. I've read it years ago, and it kind of helped me understand why our people don't go. Or you'd be surprised at who go, because it's about celebrities as well in here. But and I'm not promoting Terry Williams, but this is a good book. It's on Black Pain, and it's something that goes with our topic of today.
Right. And it's funny when you say that. I just came across so trauma, and we'll talk about this later on, but it's not only physically held in the muscles or the bones, it's in our brain. So if we start really talking about what the trauma is, we talked about walks and freeing ourselves physically, Joanna. It's in our memories. It's the centering of where it's called amygdala and the hippocampus in our brain. So that hippocampus is where it stores the memories. And so when you said that, another book is the trauma lives in the body, right? And so what happens is that we didn't know that. See, we just grew up kicking it, and you see us on this episode and many other episodes and the ones that are come for life lessons. That's what life lessons for a time such as now was really birthed out of, for the fact that we've survived. And I just want to also reiterate, you heard Crystal begin by saying I'm trauma today because that's really what the memory does. The brain goes back and says, hey, I know that, you know what? And let me just go back there and get real comfy. And this is where I live and this is where I belong. But the other part of that I want to bring out about trauma is that you can speak back to it, right? And you can say, you know what, although, yeah, I got hit by a car and God forbid, thank you, Lord, nothing happened to me. But guess what? I'm here and I'm not going to let this overtake me, because I think what the other half of that is that I know for me, growing up, a lot of times I let the trauma overtake me. And you couldn't talk to me, and I wasn't talking about, oh, my mama, she hurt me and she abused me and she, and oh, my daddy, and he never, and he left me. And then my husband, and he came, and we just kept playing the tape on and on. And the trauma just kept saying like a fishing pole, ooh, nice. Ooh, yeah, that's nice too. Ooh, I'll keep that, keeping up with the fish in the sea. You got the bass, you got the tilapia, you got the salmon, you got, the porgy, all these different types of trauma that is stored and that has enriched, and not really in a way that is meaning enriching, but it has encompassed our lives so much that that is what it exudes us. So we can't even have a conversation without snapping or without reacting or without, something that that's that flashback, right? So if I say something to you that records, that's a recording in your brain, and it sounds like I'm getting ready to go somewhere with you, and you react because that's something that you remembered. Or I hate to bring it up, but if somebody just go to reach over and cross over you and just go to reach their hand and you jump because that's what your brain is telling you, that's what I remember from being slapped or punched, right? And so the trauma is important about the flashbacks. That's the part I would really like to kind of hover over, because that's where it reminds us. It stays there, right? And so I know that in the course of these many decades of us all loving on each other as women, nursing each other's wounds as women and friends and sisters and family, we've overcome a lot of all of that trauma. And I believe that it is strictly based on, from my life experiences, what you said, Joanna, is owning it and being able to admit it. Because you started the definition off by being raped. That's okay. Let's not talk about that one, right? Nobody wants to talk about that. That's like, that goes way down in the treasure chest, right? Don't talk about that, right? Because who wants to remember that sexual deviance happened to you? But then it spills into your marriage, your relationships, promiscuity. It all just like starts to loom out of this one traumatic experience. And I often tell people, and I'm gonna stop here, nobody's one trauma trumps somebody else's trauma. So if I was raped, if Crystal was slapped, if Joanna was abandoned, and Tracy was DV'd or whatever the case may be, none of us could say, "Oh, child, your trauma ain't nothing. I could trump you one better than that," because no, that's not what it is. I love that you began that with. It only takes one incident of trauma to cause you to have been traumatized. So if it's an accident, if it's you watching your brother get shot, if you watching your mother get dragged, if you've been abandoned by a parent, if you standing on a welfare line and you don't know if you're going to eat, whatever the trauma is still trauma. And that's what we want to get the message out, to making sure that people understand what trauma is really about.
Yes, and the fact that how they know that they're still holding on to trauma, a lot of people start to misuse alcohol, drugs, their self-esteem goes down. I mean, it's crazy, but till you let that trauma go, it's gonna always be with you.
Right. And let me also add, from what Joanna was saying with the alcohol, the drugs, but just your behavior in a whole.
Oh, right?
You're quick to snap at someone, extremely defensive, right? Can possibly just be a victim with every situation, lacks patience, all of those things, can fall in line with trauma. I know, it's probably still in me. I believe it is. So I can talk to you, I can do all those things, but if you yell at me, or if you scream at me, something in my brain, like what Renee said, it triggers defend myself or protect myself, right? Because I remember first it was the screaming and the yelling, and then came the hitting, right? So automatically, if you raise your voice at me, I immediately go off, like, oh, wait a minute now, you know? So yeah, it's still a part of me. But I handle it much differently than I did before, because I recognize, due to therapy, I recognize that that's what it is. So now I try to tweak it a little bit and deal with it a little bit differently than I would have done some years past.
Right. And I believe that comes from, I know for me, that comes from therapy, from seeking out,
Correct.
you know, and knowing what my diagnosis is and knowing what my trauma is and admitting to it, and forgiveness. You know, we talked about this
Absolutely.
early on
Right.
Very
about some of
powerful.
those offenders, right? It's very powerful to do that,
Mhm.
right? And so, because, you know, I don't think any of us would want to, if we really knew what trauma does to us, I don't think we want to sit here and like hold on to trauma. And so, you know, if I'm hearing correctly, it's all about the triggers, right? It's all about how we are tweaking it. I like that. I say trick your brain, right? You trick your brain into, wait, what just happened just now? I need to really revisit this, you know, get into the habit of saying, give me a minute. You know,
Mhm.
I don't really feel comfortable with you yelling at me, right? Because if you're going to communicate with me, I don't care how you communicate with everybody else. But when you talk with me, I'm going to ask you that you don't yell, right? Because it ignites my trauma or it triggers me, right?
Mhm.
And for me, it's abandonment. Like if I, you know, and I've had to learn. Like now, I'm okay with, you know, people leave and people come and go, and that's okay. And the one person in this whole world that didn't have a choice about abandoning me, I could never get back, right? And so that person is the one person also that afflicted the most trauma in and on my life. And so you have to get a grip and go down deep and find out the true essence of where you need to be at for forgiveness. Because what if that person isn't here? Right? Or what if you can't ever
Mhm.
face your accuser, for the lack of better terms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said a mouthful on that one. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
How you feel, Crystal?
I'm just thinking about a whole lot of stuff, you know, thinking about all the things that traumatized me, you know, over the years. And my trauma is that it's just so much, you know, but if I have to pick one, I think abuse, and I'm not talking about physical abuse, mentally being abused, because my heart is so big. I always try to do everything for everyone. And what I realized my mother passed away was that I was so busy taking care of everybody else, and I didn't take time out to take care of myself. And that was a traumatic experience for me, because I started to realize, you know, my hurt and my pain, because I never really looked at it. I just would shrug it off and keep it moving, because I was too busy taking care of everybody else's needs and not my own. So,
Yeah,
Thank you for
I get
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Um, it's crazy, but I mean, not to say, you know, I had a lot of trauma, but I can honestly say that there's one trauma that I went through that's I dealt with years ago that I finally just released this year. And by me doing so, I feel like I've just something just jumped off my back. I feel lighter. I feel happy. I feel, you know why? Because I faced it, I dealt with it, and I thought of me, not anybody else's feelings. I thought of mine because I carried it and every other thing that came along with it, which I might have been carrying other loads and not even realizing,
Right.
you know, other people loads. Because,
right.
you know, I'm not saying nothing. Oh, you're good, you know, but I
That
finally
part.
let it go, it's
Mhm.
gone. Now I ain't got to talk about it ever again. or care about it or even accept an apology or anything.
Right.
Wow.
All for me. It's between you and God now.
Exactly.
Isn't that freeing? That is so,
That
to me,
is.
that's
It is
so
freeing.
freeing, right?
Yes.
That's why I said, what
Because,
if the person isn't here anymore? Like
right,
you don't have a
Right.
choice.
right. It's really
Right.
Well,
about
I mean, you
you.
could
It's
carry
about,
that trauma on for the
right.
rest of your life and end up dying with it yourself, or you could choose to move on and be free. So
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
It's definitely, about you. I feel that the only time, like for me, I know that there's things that I'm still working on and still need to identify. But I do know that talking about it, that's why I can talk about things so freely, right? Because I'm not, stuffing it down somewhere. I'm not putting it in the back closet. I'm not like, in denial of things. I'm confronting it,
Mhm.
right? And if there's leftover pain, I'm dealing with it. But the first step to me is confronting it. What
Yeah.
hurt me? Who hurt me? Or whatever it is, right? And for me, along with my therapist, I go out and I start step by step cleaning my mental and emotional closet.
Amen.
And it is so freeing that
Yeah.
as I talk to you, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. It helps me to help someone else. So I share, but it doesn't sting. The sting is gone.
right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it had to take this long for this thing to be gone. Right. If I'd have
You
known
better
that,
say that.
35 years ago, maybe I would have, done some of that work back then. It took me to have my daughter, to be quite frank and honest, to I like that Crystal said that even some of the mistakes we may have made as mothers, because remember, trauma also is passed on, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
that. I don't want to spoil alert
Right.
about
You
that,
better say
but
that.
it is passed on. And so
Yeah.
the something that pains me still is sometimes when I take a look over the course of my children's lives, as a mother, some of the choices I made may have indirectly caused some trauma in their lives, even as much as
Mhm.
I was trying to
Right.
clean up what I call my emotional bank, right? And so based on that, I'm sure that there was some residue left on, and it comes out, with my sons and my daughter, not so much, but a lot of times, and it hurts my heart, but there is healing, and so I do like the fact that, and maybe we could talk about that another time, but what that does to our children, because
Mhm.
they are a direct recipient of some of our trauma as well. So
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
That's
you're
true.
absolutely correct on that, Renee. You hit the nail on the head on that.
You
Does
did.
anyone have any other final thoughts or want to share anything? Chris, I'm going to start with you.
Yes, I think this was a very good topic, and we do have to change our mindsets and let go of the hurt and the pain. Of course, everything is a process. Thank God for you ladies that I do have you ladies to talk to. So yes, reach out to family, friends, get a therapist, and really start digging deep so we can have true and total healing, because some of that stuff is buried so deep we probably don't even realize that it's still there. So I'm still healing too, but I am going to look for that therapist.
I know that's right.
555
need
one
help.
two 12.
I need some help.
Oh, Renee?
Ladies.
I'm gonna piggyback off what Crystal said. Nothing has changed about our relationships, interchangeable over all these, beautiful decades, over the years. That the one thing that I can say is that if you have a friends, if you have sisters, if you have even brothers, because one of my brothers, we've talked about it all over the years, but it's okay. Don't be embarrassed. That's what I would say. Sometimes we hide those things, and you'd be surprised how much people know, whether or not we think they know or not, right? So I would say, don't be afraid to share. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody knows that we've all been traumatized in some way or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joanna?
I just want to say to our listeners to please, it's okay. We are all human. where we're gonna make mistakes in every aspect of our life. But the only way that you can succeed in your own healing is to seek help. Don't, like Crystal said or Renee said, don't be afraid to put that hand out and ask for help. If you are diagnosed with something, say bipolar or something, please, if they say you need the medicine, take their medicine. No, I probably should have said that, but take the
No, you probably
medicine.
should have said that.
Right. Take the medicine. It's okay. Even if you need your sister, your cousin, your mother, whoever it is that can stand by you and watch you go through the process to make sure something's not going wrong. It's okay. And say to yourself, as long as you believe in the Almighty up there, it's gonna be all right. He got you.
Amen.
Amen.
Oh, yeah, amen. That was good right there. That was good. So, to me, the problem in the Black community is that we have to put on this mask that we're always strong, right? And if someone is going to a therapist or a psychiatrist, they must be really crazy. But that's far from the truth. Strength comes from acknowledging that there's some issues, right? There's some issues, and I want to be better in my life. I want a better quality of life. And it starts with our mind, right? And our heart. It starts with that. So it's okay to, acknowledge that and seek help. Listen, we're going to have, at the end of the show, we're going to have some toll-free mental health numbers for you.
Nice.
In case you don't have a therapist and just need to talk with someone, or, if you're even contemplating suicide, or if it's a fleeting thought, give them a call. Again, if you don't have anyone to speak to, send us a chat, send us a comment, and we'll respond to you because we're here, right? We're life lessons for a time such as now. Trauma is real, and everyone who is alive has experienced some form of trauma. What is yours? Listen, like, share, subscribe. And until next time, ladies, I appreciate you guys coming on. Renee, Chris, Joanna, see you guys.
Yes, bye for now.
Bye.
Like, subscribe, and share.
Please.